All right, y'all. We're gonna go over launching a large boat here. Pretty calm day out here. Winds are out of the north, and part of launching a large boat is just kind of observing your boat as you walk up to it. Of course, we check the weather. You can actually see here that the port bow line is taut. The starboard bow line has some slack in it. That gives us a good indication the winds are indeed out of the north. So we'll be able to take off the starboard lines because that's what's holding the boat right now are the port lines. That'll ease us up. You can see my son up on the helm pulling some of the covers. But as you approach the boat and the dock, you verify what you saw in the forecast, and then you make your decisions on how you're going to launch the boat. Sometimes the winds are flat calm, and oftentimes then you just pick which lines are easiest for you to hang back up on the dock and then manage it like that. But when there's a little bit of wind, which you can see in the waves moving to the south, because the winds are out of the north, and then we can see our neighbors' flags blowing, we know we're going to pull starboard lines, and then we're going to get the generator started. We'll pull shore power right here, right? So once the generator's started, we'll flip some switches inside, and I'll show you how that goes, and we'll be up on generator power. And then we'll reel that cable in. So there's a Glendenning winch in the engine room that pulls that cable in. It stows in the transom locker. But ultimately right now, we'll pull some covers. We'll get the switches flipped on. We'll get the engines warmed up, and then we'll show you how to back out of this slip. All right, so we got the helm uncovered. We're getting the lines off, but then we're going to go about cranking up the generator and the mains. So all of that can happen right in here in the master control panel. Up here's the generator, so we'll start with that. You put it to run. You go to preheat. Some generators will do this automatically. Ours is not, so we're letting the glow plugs run. And then you just run the switch up to start. All right, we're up and running here. So we're still on the shore power. We're going to take a quick glance outside and make sure that we're pumping water. We are. It's always worthwhile checking that. A lot of people just take it for granted, and then you'll get the Murphys and it will shut down. All right, so the next thing is we're giving that thing a few minutes to warm up. It's pretty warm outside, so it won't take long before we apply a load to it. Down here, the way this boat works is the engine ignition switches that power the panels upstairs to start the engines are down here. Obviously anti-theft. You can't turn this on in here unless you get through the door lock. But then to actually start the engines is upstairs on the panel, and we'll go over that. The generator, a few minutes, we can switch it over to generator power. That's easy as this. We make sure that all of our high value stuff is off. Make sure the amp draw is very low. If the amp draw is high, it doesn't switch over very well. So we go off on shore power. You'll see the voltage go down. This device keeps you from applying both shore and generator power at the same time. Generator power is on. So we're back up on AC. But on the generator this time, we'll turn on our systems that we had turned off. The generator is now loaded and powering the boat. The next thing is we're going to walk upstairs and start the mains and get those warming up, and then we'll pull the shore power cable. All right, so starting the mains is a pretty simple task, very much like a car, but like I said, it's a little different. The keys are downstairs, turn those on, and then you come up here and start the mains on the helm. To do that, there are two engine ignition switches here. The horns are going to go on for low oil pressure because the engines aren't running. This is an emergency start switch that allows you to tie the batteries if necessary. So if your port engine battery is dead or your port main battery is dead, you can start it off the starboard and vice versa. But if everything is working right, you should not need that emergency start button. So we'll bring on the ignitions. You hear the horns for the low oil pressure. You see the gauge clusters are on now, and we'll just go ahead and start them up. These are momentary buttons now, so all right, the starboard is up and running. So we're going to let that warm up. We heard the starboard horn go off, and then we'll do the port. All right, it is literally that easy to crank up the mains. Very much like the generator, we are going to walk around here and make sure we are pumping water on both main engines. Again, you don't want to take that for granted. You will burn up all sorts of things. But we're pumping water there as well. All right, so we're going to pull in that shore power cable, and then we are going to get the boat underway. We'll see you here in a second. Okay, the mains are warming up. Keeping an eye on the gauges here. The oil pressure will show higher when they are cold. That's pretty typical. As the engines warm up, that oil pressure will come down. Normally at idle, when they're hot, they sit about 15 psi. These Cummins 60TAs are high volume, low pressure engines. So while those are warming up, we're going to bring on our electronics. So the chirp plotter, the radio, the autopilot, and we can absolutely bring on the stereo, ever important. We'll make sure our rudder is midships. The autopilot has the indicator there right here, so we make sure that rudder angle is reading 0. We're going to check the squelch on the radio, and then we're going to turn that down so we can hear it, but it doesn't interrupt the video while we're recording. So again, we're just waiting for the engines to get warm. You definitely want to give them at least like 5 minutes. These are big diesel engines. They're not meant to run cold. So we'll get them nice and warm, and then the next shot you'll see is us pulling out of the slip. And there's the danger of turning on the radio. It goes into autoplay. So we'll see you here in a few minutes. All right, you guys ready? You ready? Okay, let them go. All right, so I just gave them clearance to remove the lines, putting the boat in reverse. Pretty light wind day. I'm angling a little bit away on the port side. And as soon as we clear that, we'll then turn the boat just slightly, pulling the bow to starboard to clear that piling. Again, just asymmetric thrust here as we balance this coming out of the slip, and that's really all it takes. If you are in heavy wind, obviously you want to make sure that you're a little more aggressive on the throttles, right? Because you pull a stronger vector to back is going to move that sideways vector a little, you're not going to get pushed as hard into the pilings, right? So now we're just turning the boat in the direction we want to go, and that's it. We are, as a good friend of mine says, we are underway and making way. And that's really all it takes to launch the boat. Obviously, launching the boat is the easier of the two besides docking, and you should practice both to get comfortable with it. If there was more wind, there would absolutely have been more challenge, but not that much more challenge. On these bigger boats, especially with the fly bridges, you just usually need at least one other person. I have been able to single hand the boat when it's pretty much flat calm. But ultimately, we figured out what the winds were by walking it up, confirmed our forecast. We pulled off the unnecessary lines that weren't holding the boat. We started the generator. We started the mains to let them warm up. We pulled in the shore power cord. We removed the lines and pulled the boat into the wind, so we were as close to the port side as possible because the winds were out of the north, which was on our port today. And then I gave my deckhands, air quotes, also my family, clearance to pull the lines. We pulled the lines, and then we just reversed and managed the asymmetric thrust going to the aft. So pretty successful launch. We're on the way to go drop the hook and show you how to get on a what we call a lunch hook. Probably not an overnight hook, but just so you can start to use your boat. Hopefully this was helpful for you. All right, so as promised, we got you off the dock. We're motored to a place over here called Tom's Bayou, which is out of the north wind today. You can see my son down on the bow. He is getting the anchor ready to go in the water. I've turned the windlass on for him, which is over here on the master switch panel. He has control of the windlass down there with foot switches, and I have it up here before somebody yells at me about a life vest. Based on Florida law, on this size boat, he's not required to wear it, just have it ready. And we're very calm waters, and he's a very strong swimmer, so we're going to go ahead and move on with it like that. So what you're going to see here as we come into the bayou, we're just going to, it's not too busy out here. I just want to get all the way out of the channel before we did this. What I'm doing is I'm also watching my depth over here. We're sitting at 14.3 feet. Plenty of water as our boat drafts 3.5. And so I'm going to get to a point and I'm going to think about the wind, right? So your boat can swing. If you have a boat, especially that's got a lot of height like ours does, your boat will swing right and left, especially if the current and the wind are mismatched. Today, we're not going to have a whole lot of either. The tide is coming in, so the current is probably coming from the south and the wind is coming out of the north. But what we're going to do is we're just going to get over here and we're going to think, okay, when I drop this anchor, I don't want to swing into anything when I'm on anchor, and I don't want to run aground if the boat does a 360-degree thing. So when you let out anchor, chain, or rode, or both, you need to think about how I'm going to swing, right? So we're going to turn the boat, we're going to stay into the wind here. So we are facing to the north right now. And then just for a lunch hook, as they call it, so the hook being the anchor, lunch being I'm not worried about sleeping overnight, we'll probably do about a 5-to-1, or we're going to put out at about 50 feet of rode and chain for 10 feet of water that we're sitting in here. And then we'll talk about anchoring and storms and longer hooks in another video. But this is just how you get on a quick 5-to-1 lunch hook. So what we'll do is we'll get to the spot where I'm comfortable, that we're not going to swing around and hit anybody, and we'll tell Caden, let it go, Caden. All right, and now I can feel that going out as the windlass runs the anchor out. And I'm just going to put the boat in reverse, both engines, to kind of go straight back, right? I know we have 25 feet of chain, so we've got 25 feet out now as we switch to the road. We'll put out about the same amount of road as we continue to back up. So I'm back in neutral as we're moving back at about 1.8. Okay, that's good, Caden. And now you can actually see the road spinning and the boat as the anchor hooks, right? So we're going to let that calm down a little bit. And then we're going to put the boat under power, and we're going to make sure we're at 0 ground speed. Okay, go ahead and cleat it off, Caden. Cleat it off, yes, please. So Caden is going to cleat that, right? So as you saw that the anchor windlass start to spin out, the windlass is not designed to hold the boat, not on this boat anyway. So he's cleated it to that bow cleat. So I felt like we have a good hook because it was pulling the rope out and we weren't just dragging. So I'm going to back down, hit idle. These engines will destroy the boat, and now you can see the boat kind of swing as that anchor grabs. We'll keep it in gear here. We are at 0 knots. So when you're at 0 knots, the boat is going to swing right and left a little bit. The next step, generally I take a mark on the GPS. That way I know where I was, so if I start to drift, it's also good to keep your head on a swivel if you're eating lunch or hanging out at the sandbar or whatever. But here we are. That was as simple as it was to drop that anchor. Now, if we had backed down on it and the ground speed had not stayed at zero knots, that would have been not good, and we would have had to reset the anchor. So now, to finish this up, we're going to go ahead and pull the anchor back up. Caden. So it's just as simple when you're done. Sometimes the anchor does get stuck a little bit and you have to drive over it and pull it up. You have to be wary of that. We haven't been on the hook very long here, but you can see him, he's uncleated the boat and he's going to go ahead and start reeling it in. I'm going to give the boat a little bit of forward momentum. He is looking for where the windlass is. He's pointing, it's out of our port side. This particular windlass can drag about 1,200 pounds of force, which is a whole lot, but sometimes you still need to help it. You don't want to run it too hard. See the boat kind of twisting now as we get to the end of it. I just moved the boat just a little bit more to where he pointed. There we go. All right, it's coming in. All right, so you can see we're out of the road now. Now we're on the chain. Once we're on the chain, normally we're pretty good. You can actually feel that bumping in the boat. He's going to wash down the anchor as it comes up here. Maybe. Normally you would wash that down. So that looks like the anchor's up. Are we up? All right, so we're up. All right, so that was it. That is about as simple as it gets. We'll talk more about actual anchors. We've changed our anchor to one that works a lot better than what we had in the boat initially, right? So he's going to wash down that anchor. Before we go anywhere, we're going to make sure he's all tidied up and back up here and safe. And then we'll head back to the dock and show you how to put it back in the slip. All right. Yeah, good. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If it was, please hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you see future videos. And we look forward to having you here on the channel and helping you buy your last boat first.